Welcome to this mini-series on how students can learn to successfully turn in work of different submission styles to Canvas for grades, to pass classes, and lab experiences. Let's begin. The first item that we're going to be looking at today is turning in a text entry work. First and foremost, when I enter an assignment of any kind given to me by a teacher, I look for the title that they are referring to from my master list for the course. I can also see this list by using modules. I'm going to select the work that the teacher prompts me to for class. And now I have the title of the work in the upper left-hand corner. I also have the total number of points possible for this assignment and my submission history and information provided in the upper third. The next section provides a due date. This due date is calendar stamped with a specific date and time that the teacher will accept work without a late penalty or a missing grade. If the student has a late submission, there might also be a late penalty provided based on what's called availability dates. Other reminders, because we're in the Canvas app, will be provided here if the teacher has custom settings, but typically this is just a default. Submission types. A text entry or a file upload have been given for this particular homework assignment. We'll be executing a text entry for this tutorial, but if students are uncomfortable with that type of submission, they can easily select the other style that better suits them. Let's walk what a text entry actually is. A text entry is a good option for quick comments, bell work responses, and brainstorming other informal responses. This is going to look like a comment box that appears on your screen. You have to stay in the text entry box the entire time you are typing. Do not tap off the screen for notes, slides, pictures, etc. If I have to refer to other supplies or documents in order to execute the work, a file upload is more appropriate for this particular assignment. Also, if I've selected a text entry, I'm going to submit immediately. Toggling off of the screen without hitting submit will cause the text entry box to close. There is no way to recover that lost information, and the student will have to start from scratch again. For example, let's say in an English class, a teacher has asked me to answer the following bell work prompt to start class. What are my goals for this school year? I'm going to select the blue Submit Assignment to open the text entry box to begin my response. I'm going to tap where it says Write, and I'm going to begin typing. Once a student is satisfied with their response, and again, it can be as long as an essay or as short as a singular sentence, I have to submit in the upper right-hand corner of this miniature screen that has appeared. If I tap off of the screen or if I cancel the text entry, even if I had a beautiful response, there is no way to recover it and I have to re-attempt from scratch. Selecting the Submit button will then shoot confetti across my screen, and my instructions will now refresh to show that I have submitted the work. It will now require a teacher to grade it in order for me to see a score, but I can also see my submission here at any time from what I've turned in with the timestamp as a reference. And if the teacher gives me feedback in my comments, they will also appear here under the submission attempt. Most assignment styles require students to turn in some sort of form completion in order to receive a grade. Let's look at the second option under this series of turning in a file upload. You'll notice that there are two options for turning in pathways, and so we'll explore each in this tutorial. First, I'm going to select the title of the assignment, and you'll notice that it repeats at the top here for my reference. The points available for the assignment, and the submission history that I have not yet completed. I have my due date and reminders here in my general information, and I now see under submission types that not only do I have a text entry option, I now have a file upload option. These two are the two most popular items on our campus. However, it's good to know each style so you can use whatever is comfortable for you to execute your work. In the description, I'm going to have teacher general instructions, guidelines, and lessons. This might include videos, documents, or downloadable items for me to take over into my iPad to work on and then re-upload into Canvas. No matter what though, if the document is saved first in OneDrive, I can work on it and submit it when I'm ready and make sure that I always have a historical copy of the document so that if something gets lost in translation, I can prove that I've done my work. For example, I have an English assignment that I'm going to attempt, and so I take the question over into a Microsoft Word document, and I have typed in my assignment information, just the answers. Let's go ahead and start saving to OneDrive and then submitting to Canvas. This tutorial, I'm keeping my name of my document very generic. However, if this was the English teacher's classroom, I would highly recommend students save their documents based on the title of the course or the instructor's name in order to make finding the work later much easier. After I type my name, I'm going to make sure that the location is OneDrive. That should be the default. And then I'm going to select Save. I can now see that it has shifted to the title of the work that I have manually entered in the upper left-hand corner. Let's go back to Canvas because now I've finished, it's towards the end of class, and I need to turn this assignment in. I'm going to select File Upload. I'm going to select Files from my available options at the bottom of the submenu that opens. I'm going to select OneDrive from my left-hand side menu, and it is a file. And now I see that my submitting work file name appears based on a timestamp and its availability on how I named it. I select the file. I am ready to submit. Another option, and so now we are to part 2. Let's say that I'm typing in the document and I quickly realize that I'm running out of time, but because I've already saved this file, I can actually share it directly from Microsoft. Upper right-hand corner inside Microsoft, I'm going to select the Share-O. And then at the bottom of this option says Send a Copy. Let's send a copy over into Canvas, and there it is. And now the sub-window that opens is asking me to select my course. And oftentimes, if I'm working out of a specific course based on timestamps throughout my day, it predetermines what assignment or class this is for. I'm going to select my assignment. I might have to make comments to the teacher. Thanks for letting me resubmit. Sorry this was late. I was absent yesterday. Here's my makeup work, etc. I don't have to worry about uploading any files because the file is ready to be dragged along behind this submission button, and I can select Submit from here as well. There's my confetti and panda confirming that my submission was a success. Sometimes there's a delay. Please don't panic. I can also check back in Canvas by refreshing my screen that there is my submission being accepted. It's going to wait for a grade from the teacher, and then my feedback will come in not only my grade toggle option in my main menu, but also give me feedback here once the teacher gives me a score. Turning in a website URL is oftentimes a way for students to share larger builds like websites, online infographics through the use of Canva and other websites similar, and other projects that are required from the course based on the instructor's instruction. So let's take a look at an example of when this would occur. From the top, I have the title of the assignment that I'm going to be executing, the points possible, and the submission history. I have my due date in mind. I also have other reminders and submission types that the teacher is accepting for this particular work. I have my general description where files, videos, tutorials, and other general instructions from the instructor will be placed. And now I'm going to submit an assignment for this particular example. First, I'm going to tap out, and for this demonstration, I'm using Canva. However, other websites use similar topics. The first and foremost button in the upper right-hand corner, or wherever the share button is featured on your website of choice, I need to make sure that not just me as the editor can access, but I also want to give people with the link, my instructor, permission to look at this item. I can then copy the link and tap back into Canvas to then submit the URL. That's the first way I can submit an option. However, I do also want to show you another way. From that same website, I want to create a public view link. Selecting Create a Public View link will then automatically make it available without sharing permissions. So it depends on the comfort level of the student executing the platform. I can then again copy the public view link and paste that in Canvas. When I submit, my confetti appears on my screen, and I now have not submit assignment, but resubmit assignment appear at the bottom. I have my submission rubric and history keying up on the middle of my screen, and I have a check mark lit up green that says it is submitted, and then this is notifying the teacher that I am ready for a grade on this particular assignment. Different websites outside of Canva or Canvas have different share requirements. Please instruct students to double check share permissions so their teachers can see their work without any block. How does a student earn scores for a lab or academic demonstration of a skill if an item of work requires no online submission? Let's take a look at an example of that and how students receive points. First, it's the same setup as all work that's described online, even if there is no option to turn in for the students digitally. You'll notice at the bottom of my screen that my blue Submit Assignment or Resubmit Assignment button is missing, and that's because the teacher has prompted that all work is to be done on paper for this particular assignment. My due date is still set with particular timestamps, and again, if the teacher provides availability dates from when this work opens to the time that it closes, those are also listed there. Reminders and submission types also flash that on paper are the only styles that will be allowed to be accepted for this particular demonstration. Students do not have to turn anything into Canvas. However, teachers will manually grade on paper for courses and then enter the score for the assignments in the digital gradebook in Canvas still. So, student pro tip, if there is a paper copy of something for an assignment like this, please take a picture of your finished work. Or, even better, if you could receive the paper back from the instructor before it's lost or damaged, and you take a picture or scan the graded copy, this now prevents data loss of any kind, and you now have backup proof that you have earned your score. While the grade should remain in Canvas at all times, if there's ever a discrepancy or a question, or perhaps we want to review how a score was earned, that documentation on the student's iPad of a digital copy for paper work is critical to making sure that appropriate conversations can be had with evidence supplied. Let's take a look at an example. A lab teacher will ask you to demonstrate safety lab protocols for a grade. They have provided the following rubric for this assignment online. Again, in the general description for a Canvas assignment, they will cut out these extra instructions and go right to the task that they are asking you to execute. I can select that PDF, and it will open the copy of the rubric that the teacher has on a clipboard in the classroom, or that the students will manipulate with the instructor during the demonstration. I don't have to do anything with this documentation because, again, the paper copy filled out in class is the valuable document. If I would like to save it for my own work purposes to refer to, lovely, I can. But it's not mandatory because, again, the paper copy will be used during the demonstration. I can then see this score later after the teacher has submitted the grade in my grade column in Canvas. Until then, there is no submission to follow through on, and the due date is a reminder that perhaps this was pre-scheduled in the class and the instructor will absolutely finish this demonstration of a technical skill by the end of this date. Taking a quiz in Canvas is a type of assessment data collection that teachers, lab instructors, and other staff members associated with your students' academic progress will be executing throughout the year. Let's select the Taking a Quiz in Canvas sample module to see this item in action. I can see that the title of the quiz that I have entered is labeled in the upper left-hand corner. The total points for the quiz are listed not only under that title, but also under the general settings, and that the submission history has not been completed because the student hasn't taken the quiz yet. Teachers oftentimes will have due dates and strict limitations about when students can access quizzes, especially if they're working on them from home, so please mind the due date and other availability dates provided here. General instructions not only provide testing information, but also files, videos, and other documents that are permitted while they're in the assessment portal. Take a Quiz will appear the first time that a student enters a quiz. Resume Quiz is if a student is revisiting a quiz to finish and submit on time. This might be because they have a technical question for the teacher and they want to pause their test before resuming. There are many different question styles that can be provided in Canvas, from essays where the students type out their individual answers for review, multiple choice where they can select from options provided to them, or select all that apply multiple choice, multiple answer style questions where they can tap from a survey list provided. Once a student completes all of their question items, they can also review questions in the upper right-hand corner by double checking that their answers are as they would like. If they have skipped a question, it will also highlight here as not checked, so the students can ensure that they've answered each question to the best of their ability. They can also see how long they have been in a quiz before submission to make sure that their best effort has been provided without rushing. If I scroll to the bottom of the quiz, I can then submit. And now my score has been locked into place, and my teacher and/or the automatic grading system for this particular quiz will be submitted automatically to the gradebook for review, and the teacher will follow up with me appropriately in class if I don't already have the grade filed under my grade account in the course. Resubmitting work in Canvas is another great way for students to catch points that they might have missed on a first attempt. Let's walk through a sample of a resubmission where a student has received a low score after their initial attempt and they'd like to regrade. I can see, first of all, the title of the work from the class, the total points, and that the item has in fact been graded by the instructor. I can see how many attempts I've turned in and at what point have I turned them in, so there's my timestamp. I can tap on my submission and rubric to see what I have turned in for a grade. And back on my main screen for the assignment, I can see my overall score. If I'm unsatisfied with this work, or if a teacher perhaps prompts me to turn in for a better grade, I can then review the assignment details to see what I needed to do. First up is my due date for the assignment when it is originally due, the types of work that are being accepted by the instructor at this time for this particular assignment, and then description or detailed instructions, including videos, documents to download and work with, and other instructions from the instructor. This example states, teacher had me turn in my science homework. I received a grade of 2 out of 10, but the teacher wants me to resubmit for a regrade. I can again re-download documents and re-watch videos provided here in the general description, or if I'm ready to resubmit because I already have the file from my first attempt and I'm going to edit, I'm first going to edit the document, but then resubmitting the assignment by pushing that blue button then gives me the option to upload my files as needed, and I follow the prompts from there based on our other series videos that explain each of those options to turn in a piece of work. For this particular demonstration, let's say that I have tapped out, finished my work. I'm going to upload a file or a text entry. I'm going to then use my skills as my student to tap on my screen and type in my second attempt of work for a regrade. When I hit submit, this is the same prompt as before. My confetti shoots across my screen, and I know now that I have at least 2 attempts for this one score. I can see that it has updated. Attempt 2 is the one that will need to be regraded. It has been submitted, and it has my timestamp of when I've taken both of those, or the second attempt.